now we come to one of my favourite games on the PS3. You can see that I like it from the fact that I actually put some of my gameplay up here on the channel a fair while ago, so you have to dig back a bit if you want to find it. Yeah, Folklore, quite an early PlayStation 3 game, and as you can see I've got 2 copies. Why? Well, they're both second-hand, of course, and from memory, one is a bit manky inside. Yep. With one, the manual has a horrible sticker residue that I just can't get off. And the other one, the case doesn't look that brilliant. But the real reason is that I wanted to make sure that should one of the discs ever fail, I had a backup copy. Okay, I know that's getting a bit paranoid, but there's really only 2 or 3 games where I've done that on the PlayStation 3. And because Folklore, while you do have to hunt around a bit for a copy these days, they are around and they're not super expensive. So, strangely enough, the PAL version is slightly more expensive. And you have to reckon around $50 for that. But the US version you might find for anywhere between $35, $40, up to $50, I suppose. So it's getting slightly expensive, but I think it's well worth it. You know, make sure you get it with the manual complete in box and in decent condition. I think it really belongs into any collection that is serious about its RPGs. Yes, so Folklore is disc only, and so is Bleach Soul Resurrection. A fighting game, adventure fighting. And while I'm not hugely into fighting games usually, I actually like this one. It's fun to play and takes place in the Bleach universe, which I'm not too familiar with, but it's one way of diving in and learning a bit more about it. I know neither the manga nor the anime, so this was an interesting little dive for me into a genre that I don't normally play either. Fighting games, I'm obviously not very good at them. Has this stylishness about it, I find. Okay, the graphics are obviously from the older PlayStation 3 era, but it looks okay, and I do like the character portraits and models. Who exactly all these people are and what it's all about, of course, kind of escapes me, but there is a lot of very fast-moving action, and it is fun, as long as you can remember all the combos and everything. Now these soul points are important. You need as many as you can get to later level up.
What are you talking about?
Here is a bigger enemy.
Why did you go to Waco Mundo? Why didn't you wait for us?
There's the tip about how to flip him over.
We would have come no matter what it took. Why couldn't you trust us? Aren't we your friends, Ichigo?
And I managed it. I did flip him.
All right then. Don't ever make me.
I'm not quite sure how I did it, but I did.
It's the end!
Now, this is creepy, scary. Oh goodness me, I flinched the first time he appeared.
Get in my way. I'm going through.
The game lets you know in no uncertain terms when you are being careless, so it's a good learning curve. Now, these things are actually not as easy to take down as you might think. You need all the boosters you can find.
Let's go! Let's go!
And it took me a while to work out that you need to jump up and float up really high to get at them.
Almost there, Ichigo.
Yeah, let's do this! Let's go! Let's go! It's the end!
And he's gone. End of mission. Just a little taster for you to see what it looks like. Not a super expensive game to get, at somewhere between probably 25 and 35 US dollars. Now here I've snuck in a super important game. It's available digitally on PSN, I'm pretty sure, but it is a PS3 physical exclusive. And that is Medieval Moves, Deadman's Quest, archery, sword fighting and throwing stars. It requires the PlayStation Move controller. I picked it up some time ago, still in its cellophane cover. I think it's one of those where they published a mountain of copies that probably never really sold. You can pick it up for $2 or $3 I've seen, certainly in the United States. It's one of those oddities that I just can't resist sometimes. Now, another one like that, which also requires the PS Move controller, is Sorcery. I remember they had a demo for that on PSN all those years ago. They might still have it, I don't know. These were the early days of the PlayStation 3 and the Move controller, just like they did with the Vita and the back touch controls. Sometimes I think the people who invent this stuff are so keen to push everybody into using it. Look how cool this is, you must try this. I don't think these games took off. I remember trying to use the Move controller. I've still got mine, it's still working, with a copy of Heavy Rain. They did a version where you controlled everything with the Move controller, and it was one gigantic pain. The game works much, much better with the normal controller. But with this game, I remember you definitely need the Move. And because the Move isn't that precise, you kept, nearly throwing the Move controller like that, trying to be like Harry Potter, come on spell, come on hit. Yeah, probably 50% success rate. Yeah, it's part of PlayStation 3 history. Love it or loathe it. And another one that's disc only is Cross Edge. Now, I have 2 copies, and I think the reason is simply that a second copy was there and I picked it up. Because it's not that easy to get hold of, especially in New Zealand. This one is in fact the North American edition. They just stuck our New Zealand rating sticker over the top here. And the other one is the European PAL edition. So Cross Edge is not too expensive. It's roughly around $25, creeping up towards $30. I can't tell you much about the game. I haven't played a lot yet. It's, again, a typical NIS, Nipponichi Software JRPG. But the thing is, it's a crossover between several different franchises. It was developed by Idea Factory. and it takes characters from games by Capcom, Nipponichi, Bandai Namco and Gust. They were obviously hoping that people who are fans of one particular set of characters or another would go for the game, but I'm not aware that it ever became particularly popular. Once again, another NIS game I think that would be fair to call niche. What I have played of the combat, I found at first slightly confusing. It's a bit unusual, but once you get the hang of it, it's actually quite a lot of fun. Yeah. So he is not an amnesiac, but he doesn't know where they are. And straight away, they're attacked. Those wolves look nasty. And a new character appears. Oh, now you will probably recognize her. It's of course Morrigan from Darkstalkers. There are 4 Darkstalkers characters in this game. You see how the dialogue is all about badinage between the characters. A pretty powerful fighter, otherwise those 2 would be stranded. Now here you'll see quickly from the help files action count, that is that timer that runs down every time they take an action. And you want to watch that one. That is the crucial one to master for this game. It wasn't quite obvious at the start, and I had to practice quite a bit. So here's the area map where you can run into random enemies, and that's what I'm doing because I know I need to level up. So I'll show you an early fight where I'm still struggling with the concept of this action timer. Basically you want it to run down to 0 while getting in as many hits as possible. That you need to sort of develop a feel for that. And those early enemies, they're not pushovers, they're quite tough.
You're dead! You're dead!
So once you rack up the numbers, you can execute better skills, and you can also have combos. And those you can look up in the help files, and once I'd sort of memorized which ones work well together, I had a better time of it. I did adjust the voice to Japanese, so you can hear that a bit. The voice acting is actually quite good in this game. There's a lot of dialogue that's voiced. Now, they really hit hard, those early enemies. And we got him. But I struggled a bit, and the result accordingly is only a C. You get points and you can sort of distribute them. Morrigan comes with a boatload of points. So this is another fight, and this time I think I figured out how to use the action timer a bit better. It's not easy in the beginning because you don't have a lot of skills to juggle with. The combat has a nice snappy speed to it. You're definitely kept on your toes, and battles don't take too long. Overkill and overbreak, so obviously I must have done all right. It's a bit of trial and error in the early stages. You can also use an extra skill with R2. So you need both action points and SP as well. And that obviously went better and I got an A. So I know I'm improving. So that was just to demonstrate how you need to practice this particular combat system. On the overworld, you're looking for souls which have become trapped and need to be rescued. You learn more about that as you progress. And here you see what I thought at first would be a bustling city, but no such luck. It's a typical RPG facility where you can save and rest and have a few shops and the like available. So the shop is run by Marie from Atelier Marie, and not surprisingly there's a big focus on synthesizing and improving materials and gear. And there's a lot of choice of what you can do. So, collecting materials and converting all that stuff into upgraded equipment will become quite a focus. Now here you can do an area search, and this will reveal important points on the map. That's helpful for avoiding too many random battles. And Morrigan has a facility for reviving party members. That was a very brief look at Cross Edge. So if you're into JRPGs, maybe you decided you're just going to collect Nipponichi software games. I mean, that's, I think that would be quite a neat collecting goal, actually. I wonder why I never thought of doing that. I just I like to do too much, really. That's my problem. Anyway, if you are into these types of games, as I clearly am, I think Cross Edge would be something you want to consider. Drakengard 3, the third and final game in the Drakengard series. Very much a personal favourite with me. Carnage has never looked so beautiful. And it's true, especially for a PlayStation 3 game. It really looks pretty good. I enjoy the combat in this. It's pretty straightforward, but there's always enough to do with skills and levelling up and, running around and hitting things and enemies. And it's just got this incredibly zany world, this weird and wacky sense of humour, quite dark at times, and then again completely silly. And the little dragon, I mean, honestly, you know me and dragons, and there's a young dragon you have to look after. I mean, and she's an interesting character. She might drive you up the wall, but she is interesting. Yep, I don't care what critics say, and there have been a lot of negative reviews, but I like the game.
This is a story of 6 sisters in a world protected by the power of song. But one of these sisters seeks to bring about the world's ruin.
I found some very old footage of Drakengard 3 when I first started the game, so let's have a look together. This is the prologue when you have considerable powers already, but you basically have no idea what's going on as yet. The combo list shows you very much what this game is all about. It's very fast and fluid fighting style. It reminds me a little bit of a fighting game, but it is very much an action RPG.
Hold on, my beloved sisters. I'm coming to kill you all.
We pick the story up 1 year later when Zero has been recovering from her terrible injuries and still has nightmares of the death of her beloved dragon, Michael, or Mikhail, as his reincarnation here is called. This scene stole my heart as the young Mikhail rolls around in the mud like a little puppy. But now he's terrified of Zero's voice, and the floodgates open. He pees. If you've ever raised a puppy, you know the situation. I think the game looks simply gorgeous.
I'm sorry. It won't happen again.
Here we see the close connection between Zero and her dragon. They can clearly communicate even when they're apart. And you know me, I'm always keen on loot. No crate will remain intact.
Guess you didn't retain any of his memories, huh?
Nope. Still, I can't believe he wasn't scared. That's great. Just great. I'm gonna try to be just like him.
Now, normally in an RPG, a chains or a padlock on a chest mean you can't open it until yada yada. But look at this. I just smash it. I love this game. Looking at Zero's combo list now, we see she is back to a much earlier beginning stage, as you would expect.
You take out the ship from the air.
Okay.
I'll deal with the trash on the ground.
Alright, I'm going after the ship. Be careful, Zero.
The campaign proper starts here, and I find the action always exhilarating.
So this is the power of an intruder.
Anybody in my way is gonna lose a head. Quit pissing yourself and let me kill you!
See what I mean about her character? I think it's a great choice to have this dialogue going on between Zero and Mikhail while she's fighting. For some people, the combat might at times become a bit repetitive, and listening to them as their relationship grows. Yippee! Another chained chest.
I still don't get why you're doing this, Zero.
Look, I want to be the only intoner in the world, and that means I have to kill the others. Clear enough for you?
No, not really. I don't get it, Zero.
No, we don't get it either at this stage, but we still have a long road ahead.
The bloody intruder is an accursed sight.
Quite a difference from Lady Five and her beautiful golden aura.
Now, this is neat. This is a summon circle.
Let me know if you need me, Zero. I'll come right over, okay?
Goddamn right you will. And when you do, you better not chicken out on me. That means no running away like a crybaby. And no rolling around in your own filth.
Oh, all right.
All right, 5 should be in the Shrine of Seas up there. Probably the first time that tramp's ever seen a shrine.
Is 5 anything like you, Zero?
No.
Talk to you. Maybe then you won't have to 5.
Whatever.
Because if she's nothing like you, maybe she'll actually listen to me.
That can-do attitude's gonna get you killed.
Look, it's a pop-up shop on a battlefield. I love it.
Weapons. Mail order, huh? Well, whatever works.
The
Let's head for the shrine.
So, results. I got some experience to level up. Good. And there's a loot report. Oh, I think I did quite well. But what about treasures found? Yes, that's nice. 1, 2, 3. All done. Excellent. And one last feature I want to point out is the chapter summary, which is short and sweet and gets you up and running when you return after you haven't played a while. It's also very nicely presented. And that's it for Drakengard 3. Thank you for watching. It is available digitally, probably in most regions. I don't know if in all, because that can vary, whether a game is available on PSN. Sometimes it happens that one region will not have it, whereas another one does. So I wouldn't want my collection to be without it, honestly. An old favourite of mine. Lair. I talked about it in my video, how I got into gaming, so I won't say anything else now. And here is my old favourite, Lair. As you can see, the graphics are pretty nice for a really old PS3 game. They included a making of with the game.
The really nice thing about the controller is it matches the way you would think that a dragon would move. When a player tilts the controller down, they know what's going to happen. They know their dragon's going to descend. So in a lot of ways, it made it easier to maneuver and much more intuitive.
And as with everything, you must learn to master the beast until you fight as one.
And you start off the game ideally by doing the Darklands training first. That will be helpful.
If there is one sin
I'm awake, Ron.
no man can
Big
ever
night.
be forgiven, it is
Cousins.
failure to act.
Yours?
It is our duty to cleanse these heretics and their machines from our land.
Jeva,
Only
what
then
is that?
will God lift the plague he has cast upon us.
Captain Talon! Roan, Devon, Loden, get to the stable!
Oh, what a dream to have your own dragon. Isn't she sweet?
Easy, girl.
And with one quick motion, you astride your dragon and off you fly. And it does feel very smooth. There are the controls. They work just fine.
The Mokai are burning the city!
Now we just have to do the job. Having fire dragons is of course very convenient.
We got him! Give those boats a watery grave! Those Mokai will learn...
The only thing that spoils it a bit are the constant recycled exclamations.
Give those boats a watery grave!
Give those boats a watery grave. Oh, goodness me.
Target the boats with catapults!
I'm not quite sure about the writing department on this one, to be honest. I love flying the dragons and playing the game, but the dialogue in the script is a bit ponderous.
Eyes on, burners! Mokai dragons incoming! They're flying in formation! Must be ice dragons!
I'm on him, Stro.
A wee taster of the dragons of Lair. I use a really battered old copy to play the game, and then decided that I really needed a backup, so some time ago I bought a backup replacement copy, which is still in cellophane, should the other one ever fail. Lair is listed in my region as disc only. Now, 2 games with the word Trinity in them, but they couldn't be more different. One is Trinity Universe, a JRPG, and the other is Trinity Souls of Zill. Not sure how you're supposed to pronounce that, which is also a JRPG that looks much more like in the style of a Western RPG, I would say. Certainly one thing, it's not very colourful. It's all brown and grey and brown, it's got those muddy brownish backgrounds that they used a lot in PlayStation 3 games, and then the hero is in a grey armour, and I sometimes peer at the screen just to make sure that I can see what's going on, because it all sort of blends into one greyish, brownish colour soup. The music is rather nice. So you're thrown straight into a prologue, a tutorial, which comes thick and fast. There's a lot of commands and combos and whatnot to remember in a very short space of time. Oh yes, this is the old-fashioned way. You're thrown in at the deep end. But now things get a bit hairy. Is this the boss? 1 year earlier. This game has a lot of flashbacks. So this is our main character, and he is in a gladiatorial arena, and we have another tutorial, but this time a proper beginner tutorial, the basics. So I'll speed this up a bit as well. Oh, I see a dragon. And flashback again. I won't show you much of those because that's the all-important background to the story. And it takes us straight back to our hero. And you see, the tutorial continues. You can see from these tutorials that the skill sets are all quite extensive, but I think they are well thought out and the controls are also well arranged. Here you see the design style of the dialogue. It is obviously an older PS3 game. It reminds me just a little bit of The Last Story in its style. I quite like this traditional way of presenting it, almost like 19th century framed images. Sadly, no voice acting. More flashback story. I think the graphics look good. And finally, we're off on our adventure, registering with the guild, and the usual RPG arrangements. The overworld map is nice too. I like the style, and it's got all the information you need. We're going to the Cave of White Sands. We've got a quest from the guild to find a necklace. No quest is ever that simple, oh no. The stone pillars are a great feature, but how do you persuade the enemies to go near the stone pillar so I can topple them? What would a dungeon be without a good old lever? This is a nice health recovery feature I always appreciated, especially when you're on long expeditions and extensive dungeons. Okay, let's try that out. Oh, that works rather nicely. Good fire damage all round. Here we are learning about the all-important Soul Burst. And here it is. Pretty cool, eh? And always try and spot and pick up things. There aren't a lot of items in the dungeons. You really want to nab what you can. Yes, even a bit of platforming is occasionally called for. The camera, by the way, is pretty good. Here is the menu, and I have no complaints. Okay, we're now into the second area and things get slightly tougher. Fortunately, there is a save point available, and if you should die, you can return to the menu and choose area 1 or 2 to go back to. Look at that, a treasure chest! Finally, I get a recovery medicine. You see how dark the RPGs from that era often are? We all know this special feature. You need to come back to this dungeon and grind enemies all over just so you can get this one special item. And we have finally reached the sand pool, and I can see something glinting in there. I'm jumping in. I hope the sand won't swallow me. No, we've got it. Well, that was quite simple after all. Surprise! Scorpions! Oh, they are nasty and poisonous. I find that my area fire attack works really well. Here is a rather nice, unhurried cutscene back in the barracks. We get to know our two main characters a bit better and get more intimations of the secret that Arias carries with him. I'll let this run through to the end. I hope you enjoyed this little look at Trinity Souls of Zill. it's not a bad game. Yep, it's Koei Tecmo. And I'm pretty sure I actually have a digital copy somewhere. I think I downloaded it from the United States, from the North American PSN. I haven't checked that, I'm sorry. Let me know in the comments if what the situation is if you have a digital copy. We've seen a lot of games disappear from the PSN servers. Many games were delisted and are still disappearing, especially with unusual games or not very well-known games. I like to get a physical copy if at all possible. I did check this game on eBay. While there are copies around, they tend to go for a reasonably high price, around $100 in my currency, New Zealand dollar, so that would be possibly around 60 to 70 US dollars. Price charting has the PAL version, like mine, listed at about 35 US dollars. So I suppose it's possible you might be able to pick it up for that in a game store somewhere. Whereas Trinity Universe should be easier to get hold of if you wanted to. It's another Nipponichi Software JRPG. I'd call it pretty average. It's quite entertaining, and I actually quite like the characters. It's got that sort of wacky NIS style, but not overly wacky. The only problem I had with it is that the combat is one of those that sounds good on paper, but in the execution it tends to drag a bit. A myriad of things drift here. Numerous things wander around in the vast emptiness of the universe. A place where such things gather is believed to exist in one corner of the endless cosmos. There you can find anything. UFOs from nowhere, expansive libraries, abandoned space cruisers, leftover sushi, and more. Sometimes entire planets end up settling into orbit. People refer to this dimension of defunct or forgotten objects as the Nether Universe. Today, the Nether Universe welcomes a new traveller. I'm actually getting a bit hungry seeing that rice ball floating there, but that is an object we need to anchor, and the only way we can do that is by going into the dungeons and finding one of the gravity cores which we need to destroy in order to be able to anchor the object. And once the gravity core is destroyed, the door to another dimension opens, and through it you can obtain extra-dimensional items. You can see how very pretty the graphics are. The designer is Tsunako. That's Violet from Atelier Violet, a Japan-only game, exactly 20 years old, and Violet's special skill is summoning a carrot. Roselia is one of two main characters you can pick. The other one is the demon dog king Kanata, who is also a lot of fun to play. Another character to appear from Atelier is Pamela, and from the Disgaea series we get Etna, Flon, and a Prinny. I'm using the search skill here. This is supposed to be very useful. I'll have some more to say about that a bit later, but you can find gravity cores that way, special images, hidden treasures, and hunting points for fighting special enemies. The easiest way to show you some of the combat features is actually using the in-game tutorial, and I think you'll see from that how This is a typical NIS game with a plethora of different types of systems and commands and skills you can use in various combinations. Just remember which particular button to press. It gets a bit confusing and requires a lot of practice to get it down pat. There are, of course, EX skills. These are unusually controlled by this circular chain with beads on it. You basically need to build up enough points to be able to execute them. Now there is a teeny tiny problem with using that circle button for a whole host of different skills, and I'll show you that in a battle sequence in a moment. And this one is a bit frustrating because it takes quite a bit of time to build up 2 beads on the image chain, so using that for defense you have to wait a fair amount of time. By then you might already be quite exhausted or near death. So here's a simple practice enemy, and you can see how by attacking and using the R1 button you get this so-called fury chain, which allows you to use some special buffs. In this case I used speed. Here is a battle with some much more demanding enemies, and I took a bit of a hammering during that fight. The reason probably being that after so many years suddenly stepping back into the game, I couldn't remember how certain things worked, from attacks to special skills. So here I was still coming to grips with things, but it led to diminished HP, and I went into the next battle already quite low on HP, and that's where I want to show you the special circle button cure space. But at least I got a level up and some good items out of it. I just want to comment on this game's style and aura compared with the better-known Disgaea series, which is completely over-the-top wacky, you'd have to say. This game has a more balanced mixture of Disgaea features as well as the softer features of the Atelier series, and it makes for a very pleasant change, I feel. I do enjoy spending time here, and the other thing is that they have some very interesting and appealing concepts here in the gameplay. The only problem is that not all of them work as they probably should or are that well executed, so there are some flaws, but overall an enjoyable time. The presence of Violet indicates that synthesizing is an important part of the game, and look at it. If you've ever played Atelier, you will know what an uni is. So here's the promised second part of the battle. Exactly the same enemies again, and as you can see I'm already quite dangerously low on HP for 2 party members. So here we see the cure space being used. You have to hold down the circle button. If you want to use an item, you would stop then and use it. In this case, I went on and used a party heal function. But it sort of cycles through using up your points, and accordingly you have to hold down the button until what you need pops up. I find it an incredibly awkward and frustrating system. I have not figured out whether there's any simpler way of just accessing an item in battle. If anyone knows, please help me out. At least I managed to defeat them and got out of that scrape. So I decided to use the exit point. They are very liberally, conveniently placed, so you can always get out of a dungeon, encouraging you to go back, explore and grind. And here you see objects drifting out and new ones drifting into the nether universe. I want to show you something in the options. You can have a soft camera option if you suffer from motion sickness. A nice feature for back in 2009. I'm now switching the voice mode to English. I went back to an easier dungeon, and I just want to show you here how the items work. Circle button, use item, click, there it is, and you can use it. I guess you get used to it, but it strikes me as needlessly laborious. I really much prefer just having access via one button press or a D-pad press. And I need to show you that the camera is awkward. Just turning around, it's not ideal. Now here's a mysterious item. Looks a bit like a TARDIS phone box.
Hello! Welcome to Violet Garden!
Now here I'm using the search function again and trying to trace one of the beams. Just watch how I'm struggling with the camera because I'm in a slightly awkward spot. I literally can't follow the beam to tell exactly where it's going, so the function is not really very useful at this point, and this happened quite frequently. Also, the beam just points to a wall and you have to work out on the map whether it might be behind the wall in a different room. It's limited in its usefulness, unfortunately. So I'll wrap it up now. Oh look, we got a bonus. Thank you. Okay, not much, but we'll take it. This got a bit longer than I had anticipated, but I hope you enjoyed it nonetheless. Trinity Universe. But if you're into getting JRPGs and in particular NIS, it should be a relatively easy one to pick up. I don't think it's particularly expensive either. So I'm getting close to finishing the first lot of games I'd set aside for showing you. This is a game in the Invizimals, the Invisible Animals Invizimals. So this one's called The Lost Kingdom. You will probably be more familiar with the Invizimals as originally a series published for the PSP and then later for the Vita. And they were mainly published in Europe, I think. This game is not commonly listed as being a PS3 exclusive, but I've looked into it and I think it probably is one. The game was released in 2013 together with the Vita game The Alliance. They were meant to complement each other. You could cross-play in battle mode. In the absence of any evidence to the contrary, I'm declaring this a PS3 exclusive. unless someone among you has some really secret information. The Lost Kingdom. Note that the title is different from the other Invizimals games, especially the Alliance, because this game, being on the PS3, has to be different. It doesn't have the AR features, augmented reality, or all the touchscreen features. Here you see the boy who assumes the shape of the Invisimal Ocelot, crawling through a tunnel to reach another area. This is very much a platforming game, and as you can see, it has a fixed camera. And I'm not terribly good with fixed cameras. I find it a bit disconcerting at times when you have to jump blind into a certain space. Here you see the other thing this game is about, is it's a collectathon for getting your points, which you use for leveling up for new skills. Everything's kept very simple, suitable for the very young audience it's intended for.
This looks like a tougher battle. You'll probably need to use your heavy attack.
The enemies are actually not interested in me. So I'm speeding up the backtracking now, and I also apologise for the rather empty and boring looking environment. Oops, exploding barrels are supposed to keep you on your toes. My original recorded footage somehow got lost, and so I had to revisit an area I'd already been to, which explains the absence of many enemies. And this here illustrates nicely how the fixed camera often defeated me and I plummeted to my death. And here I get stuck in the scenery and had to wiggle out. But those were the only glitches I encountered. The inventory menu. I know I had unlocked quite a few Invizimals, so I have no idea what happened to that save file. You have a nice, simple grapple action. I remember this vault, but I have no recollection what that strange flower's doing there. I think this was a boss fight.
Collected enough Z-Sparks to upgrade one of your Invisimal attacks.
Okay, upgrade time. I've only got the Ocelot here, and the game will pretty much suggest to you what you should be getting. So once again, very simple. And we'll finish off with the boy, who's called Hero, having to walk the plank. I far prefer flying a dragon with the gyroscopic controls rather than doing a balancing act. Once again, should be easy enough to pick up and not expensive. A game series that is very much tailored for a younger audience. So I want to finish up this session with two Tales games, which are the only ones that I think are actually exclusive to the PlayStation 3. Other games like Tales of Graces F or the Tales of Symphonia special edition that was published for the PlayStation 3, they're all not actually exclusive to this platform. But Exilia is, as far as I know. And here we have the two Exilia games. Tales of Exilia and Tales of Exilia 2. Also available digitally, of course. But if you're into JRPGs, then the Tales series is really a big one, and I think you'd want to include Tales games for the PS3 in your collection. There's just no question about it. And I can say that Exilia is one of my favourites together with Grace's. So that concludes today's haul. If you have any questions, just ask away. I will do my best to answer what I can. I hope it's given you an idea of the depth and breadth of games you can get for the PlayStation 3, and that's just with focusing mainly on RPG type games. But I do have many other games as well. It's just that these ones, especially the RPGs and JRPGs, often tended to be exclusives. As always, thank you very much for taking the time to watch. I hope there was something of interest in today's video for you. Please keep well. I'm Food for Dogs. Bye-bye.